Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission today, it's laser focused. We're tackling a stack of core cybersecurity concepts straight from the CompTIA Security Plus exam material.
That's right.
Think of it like a structured rapid review.
Yeah.
You want to validate and really deepen your understanding of those bedrock principles that, run the entire security industry.
Exactly. So whether you're actually studying for the SY0701 cert, or maybe you just need a good crash course in modern security hygiene, this deep dive should deliver some essential high-value knowledge.
Yeah.
And we're not just ticking boxes on a quiz here.
Right.
We're using these questions, these scenarios, to kind of expose the underlying thinking things like how least privilege ties into operations or why layered defenses are just, well, non-negotiable.
Right. We've broken it down, haven't we? General concepts,
No.
architecture, operations, management.
The key domain.
The goal is for you, the listener, to walk away not just knowing an answer, but really getting the foundational why behind any successful security posture.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, let's jump straight in then. Fundamentals, first architecture, and threat definitions. All right, let's start with a really crucial threat model. When security folks talk about a zero-day vulnerability, what exactly are they getting at? Is it that the flaw's only in open source code? Or maybe that it's been known for over a year? Or is it that it's being actively exploited before the vendor even has a patch ready?
It's absolutely that third one.
Yeah.
Exploited before the patch exists.
Oh.
The name 0 day is the clue, right? It refers to the timeline. The vendor literally has had 0 days to react and develop a fix.
Okay.
And that's critical because it means your standard, signature-based defenses, often totally ineffective initially. The initial breach window is just wide open.
So the severity really boils down to that short window of exposure, huh? Doesn't even matter how complex the eventual fix might be.
Precisely. If a vulnerability is found and weaponized immediately, well, the damage is already happening while the good guys are still scrambling to catch up.
Speaking of damage, let's switch gears slightly. One of the most, unpredictable threats. The insider.
Always a tough one.
We know background checks help, sure. But if an organization wants the single most effective technical control against, say, an authorized user going rogue, what should they deploy? Is it strong passwords, encryption, or really robust access control systems?
It really has to be deploying a robust access control system.
Okay. Why is that?
Because insider threats are so dangerous, precisely because the attackers already passed the perimeter, they have legitimate credentials.
Right, they're already in.
Exactly. Strong passwords, encryption, they're important, don't get me wrong. But only access controls, like role-based access control, RBAC, can actually enforce the rule that employees only see the resources strictly necessary for their specific job roles. It's about limiting their sphere of influence,
That idea leads us perfectly into the classic CIA triad. Let's say an organization is laser-focused on making sure sensitive data, maybe proprietary schematics, can't be viewed by unauthorized users, even if someone intercepts it mid-transmission. Which security principle are they really prioritizing there? Integrity, confidentiality, availability.
That is squarely focused on confidentiality.
Okay.
If the main goal is preventing unauthorized viewing, that means protecting the secrecy, the privacy of the data. And that's where encryption, for example, plays its main role. It guarantees confidentiality, even if the data somehow gets intercepted.
Yeah, it's worth maybe pausing just to distinguish that from the others, right?
Yeah.
Because if we were worried about those schematics being, subtly altered or tampered with.
And then you'd be talking integrity, absolutely.
Yeah.
Integrity ensures accuracy, completeness, usually using things like hashing or digital signatures. And availability, well, that's the third leg, just making sure legitimate users can actually get to the data when they need it. Often addressed through redundancy, fault tolerance, that kind of thing.
Makes sense. Okay, let's follow that access control thread a bit further. Imagine a new company policy dictates that employees can only read documents in the main HR folder and, say, write entries into their own time tracking sheet. Nothing else. Which security principle is really being enforced there? Is it separation of duties? Least privilege? Or something like non-repudiation?
That sounds like a textbook definition of least privilege.
Right.
Restricting access to the absolute bare minimum required for someone to do their job. Sounds like maybe an HR analyst who definitely doesn't need access to, say, database administrator controls.
But wait a sec, how does that differ in practice from separation of duties? Because they often seem to overlap, don't they?
That is a great question, and they definitely can seem similar. But least privilege applies to an individual's necessary access level for their role. Separation of duties, on the other hand, is more of a management control. It's designed to ensure that no single person can control an entire critical process from beginning to end. Think about financing. The person who writes the checks shouldn't also be the person who audits the accounts, right?
Ah, okay. Got it.
Both reduce risk, absolutely. But least privilege is about limiting an individual's scope, while separation of duties is about preventing potential fraud or collusion by splitting responsibilities across multiple people.
Fantastic distinction. Okay, shifting to overall security architecture now. What would you say is the really critical component of a defense-in-depth strategy? Is it relying on one super robust firewall, or is it using layered security controls, or maybe having minimal logging?
Oh, it has to be layered security controls, no
Oh,
question.
layered controls, why?
Because defense in depth fundamentally acknowledges that any single control, I don't care how robust you think it is, can fail. So by implementing multiple overlapping security measures, maybe a perimeter firewall, plus an internal application firewall, plus endpoint detection software, plus rigorous input validation, you build in redundancy.
So if one layer gets breached.
The next layer is hopefully there to catch the attack.
Exactly. We see that a lot in web application security specifically, don't we? Like input validation is key to defense in depth there.
Absolutely key. Because even if somehow, some way, a hacker bypasses your web application firewall, right, if the application itself is properly validating inputs, it can still reject malicious code. Think about cross-site scripting, XSS attacks. If you're stripping out or encoding those executable script tags before they even hit the user's browser, that's a crucial layer of defense inside the application, protecting you regardless of what happened at the network edge.
Okay, so now let's shift gears a bit. Moving from that sort of underlying design philosophy to more active threat mitigation and organizational governance.
Makes sense. Putting principles into practice.
Exactly. Let's look at a super common vulnerability. SQL injection. If your company's database application is vulnerable, what's the most foundational thing you should do first? Should you encrypt the entire database, strengthen passwords, or really focus on sanitizing and validating all user inputs?
The primary fix, the most direct one, is absolutely to sanitize and validate all user inputs.
Okay.
SQL injection exploits fundamentally poor input handling. So if you fix that core logic in the application itself, you prevent the malicious input from ever getting executed against the database in the first place.
So things like implementing a WAF, a web application firewall, that's more secondary.
It's a great secondary measure, definitely helpful, but the input validation fixes the root vulnerability in the application. That's the first line.
Gotcha. Okay, shifting to policy now. Let's think about ransomware. Obviously a massive financial threat these days. What practice should be absolutely mandatory in a policy designed to protect against the financial impact of ransomware? Is it deploying a honeypot network segmentation or doing regular data backups with offline storage?
Oh, the definitive answer there has got to be regular data backups and, crucially, requiring offline or immutable storage.
Offline or immutable, why is that part so key?
Well, things like network segmentation, option C there, that's excellent for limiting the spread if ransomware gets in. But the only way to guarantee you can recover without paying the ransom is having the ability to restore everything from a clean, isolated source.
Right.
And that backup itself has to be protected, right? It needs to be offline or somehow protected so the ransomware can't encrypt your backups too.
Right. That really highlights the difference between prevention, like limiting spread, and having a solid recovery strategy.
Exactly. Two sides of the same coin.
Okay, let's talk governance then. What's the main objective of a security audit within a formal cybersecurity framework? Is it primarily about implementing new tools, training employees, or is it really about ensuring compliance with the security policies you already have?
The core purpose of an audit is verification and assurance. So it's definitely about ensuring compliance with established policies.
Verification.
Okay. Yeah, an audit acts as a critical check and balance. It doesn't usually develop new standards or mandate new tools itself. Its job is to check whether the standards and tools you already decided on are actually functioning correctly and meeting whatever regulatory requirements apply.
And we know those requirements can vary massively, can't they? Like if you're handling sensitive financial data, PCI DSS is huge, but if it's patient records.
Then the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, that's the framework you absolutely must adhere to. The audit's job is to make sure you're doing just that for the relevant standards. And knowing which regulations apply to your specific data and ensuring compliance through that audit process, that's really what separates a mature, proactive security program from one that's just constantly reacting to problems. Okay, last one in this section. Let's look at data loss prevention, or DLP. When you're implementing a DLP solution, what's the most crucial sort of real-world aspect you need to address? Is it just focusing on encryption, making sure it integrates with your existing tools? Or is it finding that balance between data protection and, well, employee productivity and workflow?
This is where security definitely bumps up against the business reality. The answer has to be balancing data protection with productivity.
Why is that so critical?
Because if your security measures, like DLP, are too restrictive, maybe they block legitimate file transfers that a remote team absolutely needs to do their job. What happens?
The people find workarounds. Shadow IT. Exactly. Employees will find ways around it, maybe using unauthorized tools, which completely defeats the purpose. Overly aggressive security that just paralyzes workflow often leads to people abandoning the system or finding insecure ways around it, which makes the DLP basically useless. Usability is absolutely critical for enforcement to actually work in the real world.
All right, let's wrap up with security operations. What happens when an incident is actually live? It's happening now.
Okay, crunch time.
So a team is responding to a malware outbreak spreading through the network. To minimize the damage, what is the absolute first action they need to take? Should they try to identify the specific malware variant first, update all the antivirus signatures, or immediately isolate the infected systems?
The immediate priority, no question, is containment. You must isolate the infected systems first.
Containment first.
Absolutely. At
Yeah.
that moment, it doesn't matter exactly what the malware is or even how you're eventually going to eradicate it. If you don't stop the spread right now, the damage is just going to multiply exponentially. Containment isolation always comes before identification or eradication in that standard incident response lifecycle.
Okay, that makes sense. Stop the bleeding first.
Precisely.
Let's look at another common scenario. Unauthorized access has occurred, and the root cause was stolen credentials. What's the best immediate action to take that provides a more persistent fix against this happening again? Is it forcing everyone to change their passwords? Implementing multi-factor authentication, MFA? Or maybe doing a full system-wide shutdown?
For a persistent and robust fix, the best immediate action there is implementing multi-factor authentication.
MFA. Why not just password changes?
Well, changing passwords is a necessary reactive step, absolutely. You have to do it. But implementing MFA immediately adds that second required factor, something you have, like a token or a phone app or something you are, like a fingerprint, that instantly renders the stolen password useless on its own.
Oh, okay.
So it provides a much stronger long-term defense against future credential theft incidents. It addresses the root cause more fundamentally.
Got it. Okay, our final scenario here focuses on data at rest. A company wants to make sure its backup data, maybe stored on physical tapes or hard drives, is protected against unauthorized access, even if someone physically steals the media. Which method provides the best protection for that specific situation? Data masking, hashing, or full disk encryption?
Right, so when data is at rest, meaning not actively being transmitted, and the main priority is confidentiality, preventing unauthorized viewing, then full disk encryption is really the gold standard.
Why not the others, hashing or masking?
Well, hashing is mainly about ensuring integrity, right? It proves the data hasn't been altered, but it doesn't hide the content itself. Data masking kind of scrambles or obfuscates data within a system, often for testing or development. But full disk encryption, that ensures the entire drive, the entire physical medium, is unreadable without the specific decryption key. So even if someone walks off with the tape or the drive, the data remains confidential. Guaranteed.
Wow. Okay, so we've just rapidly cycled through a whole spectrum of security concepts, haven't we? From zero-day threats and SQL injection mitigation, all the way to the layered resilience of defense in depth, the importance of offline backups for ransomware. It's a massive breadth of material to really master.
It really is. And you see how they connect, right? We touched on how core principles like least privilege and good access controls help limit the scope if an insider breach happens.
Yeah.
Well, tools like MFA can help ensure that even if there's a zero-day vulnerability that leverages credential theft, it might be contained right at the access point. For someone prepping for a certification like security, plus, just running through practice tests once or twice, is probably not enough to really cement this whole complex web of knowledge.
So if the technical knowledge itself is this comprehensive, what does a truly successful preparation strategy look like today? It can't just be about flipping through static flashcards anymore, should there?
Absolutely not. The strategy really needs to be adaptive and analytical. I think the most effective approach these days involves using, AI-powered study tools that actually personalize your learning path.
Personalize, how so?
Well, they don't waste your time drilling concepts you already clearly understand. Instead, they can intelligently drill down precisely on your specific weaknesses. Maybe it's the subtle differences between least privilege and separation of duties we talked about, or really distinguishing between the pillars of the CIA triad in different scenarios.
That kind of targeted drilling definitely sounds way more efficient than just, traditional rote memorization.
It's really the defining feature, I think. The key strategic advantage is something often called smart review. Good modern platforms, maybe like a tool called Flash Genius, for example, they don't just mark your practice question wrong.
Right.
They often provide an AI-powered analysis of why you might have chosen the wrong option and give you immediate contextual explanations tailored specifically to that mistake. And that process, it really turns every single error into a genuine learning opportunity, which is just vital for retention and truly mastering the full breadth required for the exam.
And we also saw how all this synthesis relies on practical application, like connecting the policy side, like balancing DLP and productivity with the actual technical tools, like implementing MFA. So
Right.
using things like full-length exam simulations and maybe specific domain practice modes must help train your brain to make those connections quickly, especially under pressure.
Exactly, that's spot on. When you're studying for a certification like Security Plus that really demands you differentiate between governance, architecture, and operational controls on the fly, you absolutely need a strategy that combines that high-volume practice with deep analytical mistake remediation. It's kind of like building a customized, resilient knowledge base, almost like building a defense-in-depth architecture for your own brain, if you will.
That's a great analogy. Okay, well, I think we've successfully navigated the core domains here: concepts, architecture, operations, management. Hopefully, you now have a much stronger grasp of what it takes to validate your security expertise, maybe even get ready for that SY0701 exam.
I think so too. We've shown how those core principles like least privilege and robust access control directly help combat insider threats, and how layered controls build resilience against those external attacks. It all fits together.
So, as we wrap up, here's a final provocative thought for you to maybe chew on. Considering that principle of least privilege we discussed, alongside that crucial real-world need to balance security with employee productivity, like we saw with the DLT example, what kind of new access control models, perhaps things based on zero trust principles or maybe dynamic context-aware attributes, are really required now to maintain strict security without completely crippling the agility and convenience that a modern, often global workforce demands?
That's a deep one.
Something for you to explore next time you find yourself looking at a corporate security policy, maybe. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.